Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hi, team.
Oh, hello.
Welcome to the show. Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. How is everybody? Chewy and I are just having a debate before we started as to when we get into the Christopher Luxon conversation, which clips can we show and have we got a spare 6 hours? So I've made, here we go. I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a minimum of 8 clips. So what I thought we'd do, oh hi, welcome to the show by the way, we'll just straight into it, is I've starred 3 of them as the major topics, which is the surplus and his and Luxon's credibility, the poor better off, and also my WTF moment. I was in here in the studio watching that in the weekend. I went, what the, out loud. I don't, who does that? But I did. But anyway, hi team. Hi Joey, how are you, mate?
Good. I'm just hydrating because I'm going to call it now. It's a 2-hour show.
All right. Nice t-shirt. Where'd you get that
Thanks,
from?
buddy. I bought it from this dodgy website.
Temu. So what you mean,
just
Temu?
uploaded a photo and they made me a t-shirt. No, that's from our merch store. I know you're taking the piss, but it is.
Yeah.
And people are loving it.
Let me say something about that, because what we've done is we have shut the merch store down, sort of, because we told you last week we wanted to make sure that we all did it properly and got them all out by Christmas. So we've sort of shut it down for today, except we are leaving Nikki No Boats on there. Now, one of the reasons we're leaving Nikki No Boats on there is it has gained momentum around the interwebs. Millie Molly says, I just saw a tweet which I can't find now, bugger it. Anyway, they called Nicola Willis Nikki No Boats, and that's going to be my new name for her. Goes on to saying, you should check out BHN on YouTube. I've heard of them. I didn't know about their t-shirts. Yep, buy the merch. And then links to all sorts of stuff. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to leave Nikki No Boats up and running for now. But next week, we're going to bring some merch back. The problem is with Christmas and New Year's, our supplier of t-shirts and stuff closed down, and obviously postal stuff closes down. So what I've done in the weekend is I've actually ordered a whole bunch of blanks, a whole bunch of t-shirts before selling them. And when I get those delivered, we will then put back up on this on the site how many we've got, and we're going to change them slightly. So, for example, there will only be one colour available in the Tuna Rangatiratanga. And Chewy, we made a mistake in the weekend, and we printed one on rust. Looked pretty good. So we're going to have rust t-shirts for that, and rust t-shirts for your and mine face. And then we're going to have blue for Nikki No Boats, and we're going to have something else, which I can't remember right now. So, yeah. There we go. Is that your rust, is it? Are you going all sorts of colours?
That's a bit dramatic.
Feeling a bit blue. So yes, it's been a busy weekend. In fact, I've only just had dinner now because me and the partner are out there sorting stuff out. Right now, there's someone out there going, and pressing t-shirts for everybody. 7 seconds. Beep, 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 beep. Peel the thing off. 4 seconds. Beep, 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 beep. Put the thing up. Finished t-shirt. Yeah. So it's been a lovely weekend and a busy weekend. How about you, Chu? What'd you get up to? How burnt are you? How burnt?
I'm not burnt at all. I know your lovely partner was looking out for me and says, "Oh, the sun hates you, Chippy," and it does. It does. But I'm not burnt. I went very red, but that's just the sign that the man on the barbecue is putting in the mahi. So yeah. Yep, first barbecue of the season. You were there. It was good times.
I think the second barbecue is going to be this weekend. So this weekend, whānau, BHN, the patrons primarily, but you guys, are flying Magenta from Wellington to Christchurch, and then Magenta and Emily are getting in the wee car and they're driving from Christchurch to Dunedin, and then on Saturday night we're having a BHN Christmas party. So that's happening this weekend, and that'll be the next. I actually don't know if we're going to do a barbecue or not. I'll figure it out, but possibly. But I just said thanks to you patrons. Check this out from the week that's gone. I actually think what's happened, Chewy, is people have seen that this is like, an award-winning podcast, multiple award-winning podcast, and winning awards for current affairs above things like RNZ and stuff and that sort of thing. And because of that, our patrons now see us as a it's a good spend, it's a good investment, right? It's a good return for their investment. Because it's not just beer money anymore. It's like beer money, and we're beating all those mainstream media things who have got bigger budgets. So listen to this. This is last week. I want to say huge thanks to Scarlett Michelle, to Caleb Daniels, to Kim Hamilton, to Amy, to Dreadnought, to Rodney Selby, to Vans, to Marzipan Rocks, to Fetu Anderson, and to Renee, who all become new patrons in the last 7 days. Also want to say thanks to Billid, B-I-L-L-I-D, Billid, and to Chris Maguren, and also to Joe Shaw, who also decided that they'd change their patronage to a layer up. So very, very grateful for you guys. Thanks so much for joining and being a part of this. If you want to be a part of what we do, help pay the odd bill behind the scenes, then Patreon's a really good way to do it. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. There it is right there. We have monthly meetups. We'll do one again before Christmas. We also have early access to things. And there's actually something, and I'll do a little apology. There are actually some, we give things to people who are certain levels, but I've been a bit slack on that. So I'm going to be contacting all those people in the next week or so. Chewy, do you need to be in a disco tonight? Is that what's happening, or with the flashing lights, or, stuff?
I'm trying to get the ambience right.
Ambiance. Well, let me show you something while you're looking for that. This came across my Blue Sky account, and I just remember thinking, gosh, this is one of my favorite things from that hikoi, and it was that image there.
That poster is around Dunedin quite a few places.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
But then when I put that out there, a few people started responding, and people said things like, oh, I quite like this one. That's pretty good.
That's so good. That's
and actually, it looks like it's actually on the T-shirt, like they've got the crease lines right as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone challenged that by saying, "What about this one?"
Oh. Bit fleshy.
Bit fleshy. Yeah, I don't know which is more offensive to which part. I don't know, because that's how it goes. So yes, people, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're having a good time, and thank you for being a part of us, and we look forward to this week. Okay, so this week we have Chippy live with us, one of the evenings this week. I'll be frank with you people. We could have had him tomorrow night, probably as a pre-record, but I said we love our live audience, and I would rather have him later in the week live, even though it's further away from the conference, than earlier in the week as a pre-record. So they offered Thursday. I went, kapai. So Chippy live Thursday evening from 9 p.m. We'll be doing it here. The other thing we're starting to do is think about who are our favourites. Last year, the week leading up to Christmas, we talked about our favourites, and I think we had Kieran on and Chloe on and some other people. You don't need to give us suggestions now. You can if you want, but also start thinking about who you'd like to see come to the show in those last few days. Because we're now a foursome, there's four of us who do this. Probably the last show of the day, all four of the year, all four of us will just do it together. So there's probably 3, maybe 4 episodes that we could have our favourites coming on. They don't have to be news people either. They could just be people who have, maybe there's an academic who comes on regularly who you're like, oh, I love that person. Maybe it's another news commentator. Maybe it's a Simon Wilson or something like that. These people who you love. Maybe it's Craig Rennie. Maybe he's a favourite. I don't know. But just have a think about it. We'll look for probably some suggestions next week, and then the following week we'll get them in. Anything you need to add, Chewy, or are you ready to rock and roll?
Well, I know you put a lot of effort into editing the clips and stuff like that. So, are we doing the Q&A stuff at the start or at the end?
I probably was going to do Labour Party conference. It's a story from yesterday. It's only 2.5 minutes, but I thought that we could have a chat about what's going on. Obviously, when it comes to the conference, we'll talk in more detail with Chippy when we see Chippy. So we're going to talk about the Labour Party conference. We're also going to talk about this poll that was just released from Stuff News, 3 News. Some interesting things in there. But to be honest, all of that stuff about, oh, look, it would be a hung parliament if they had an election today. They're not having an election today. I don't care about that kind of shit. But preferred prime minister is an interesting one. And public feedback on how they think race relations are going. Those things are interesting. So they're the kind of 3 things we're going to look at. The poll, we're going to do half the story from the poll off 3 News. We're going to do a little bit on the conference, and then the majority of tonight's show is going to be dedicated to that debacle that was a Q&A show. See, Chewy's getting his shirt off. That means he's good to go.
Look, there were questions. Why doesn't Luxon go on Q&A? Yeah, we know.
Why will he never go back on? We know that
put
too.
Put that one to bed. Yeah, it's so good.
All right. Let's do this. Let's do that last, because we'll probably only spend 7 minutes on the first couple. That means 20. And then we'll have a look at that last for the rest of the show, and people can get involved. And if we do it last, if we've got time, I can do some of the other clips that we're not necessarily prioritising. So, Labour Party conference over the weekend. This is not a story from today. I think it was on the news technically yesterday, but it gives a little bit of a summary about what was going on. And, Hipkins is pledging to make this a one-term government. People of Dunedin, he made a bit of a shout-out to you guys as well. The truth is, though, Chewy, he says something about Dunedin Hospital, and not because I distrust Chippy, but I go, but they said that before, and then they withdrew. And then National said it, and then they withdrew. So I like the words. How do we, the public, get the assurance or the guarantee from any political party? I forget who's saying it. But let's have a look at a little bit of the highlights from the weekend based off a story from yesterday.
And speaking at the Labour Party's annual conference today in Christchurch, leader Chris Hipkins vowed a full rebuild of Dunedin Hospital and to reinstate smoke-free Aotearoa. Political editor Mikey
That I do believe, because that's political gold. So absolutely, I buy that.
Sherman was there.
As the Labour faithful lined up for Chris Hipkins' keynote speech, amongst the crowd were a few new supporters.
I've come to Labour from being in the Aotearoa Legalised Cannabis Party.
I joined the party in October this year because it was especially the issue with the Treaty of Waitangi.
I heard Chris Hipkins give his response on national radio about the ecoy, and it was the first sensible thing I'd heard from a politician. So I thought I'd come listen to him.
Inside, the warm-up acts kicked things off, including entertainer Jason Gunn, who let rip on the government.
It's never felt.
It's interesting. I've done a podcast with old Jace, and we kind of, talk backwards and forwards, and I've asked them to come on, but also kind of said, I get it, I understand. You are a public figure. Maybe you have to be a bit careful with what you say. When it looks like that's out the window now, because he's doing a part of the Labour Party. I'm not saying he said I can't do it. I kind of gave him that out. I'm like, it's fine. We won't have to talk about it. But yeah, he's I think he's becoming more overt, shall we say, with his political leanings, which is interesting.
Less on track. It's never felt more on the wrong track.
Then it was Chris Hipkins' turn.
This will be a one-term national government.
The Labour leader making a lot of promises.
We will reinstate smoke-free Aotearoa. We will cancel the tax breaks they have given to tobacco companies. Today, I can announce that under Labour, New Zealand will not be part of AUKUS.
The crowd loved it.
And yes, today I am going to announce that we will complete the full rebuild of Dunedin Hospital as we promised.
But
you promised, and then you downgraded your promise. So which promise are we talking about? Just so we're clear. Because you promised, Labor, then you downgraded it, and then National came in and said, we'll do it better, and then they downgraded it. So which one? I mean, we can ask Chippy this himself. I didn't tell you, Chippy. He's coming on live on Thursday night. We'll ask him, because the other thing about coalition governments is an interesting conversation to have with a politician. How does any party make a guarantee? Because let's just say for some reason, forget what the policy is, but one of your coalition partners goes, yeah, I'm not going to sign on to that. How does anyone make a promise these days in this world? Because, I mean, as we've seen with these guys who are in right now, you know, your promises can go away very quickly, or they can be upscaled very quickly depending on the other people you need to get power. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair question. Look, I think they're both fair questions. And I think Labor and Chippy have to be prepared for these questions, because the people of Otago have had promises broken by both major parties. So I wouldn't expect them to come just flocking back just at that word. You know, I had those same thoughts of like, okay, it's good that you're saying it.
Yeah.
Stick your flag in the ground. Awesome. But you're not going to do it to us again, are you?
It's a little bit like the New Zealand cricket team, Joey. You probably don't know this, but I like using sporting analogies. It's a little bit like
did they get last season?
Yes, 64,000, I think it was. Or they got to about 300 miles per hour down the back straight, I think. That was about right. Is that I always find my relationship with the New Zealand cricket team a bit like an abusive relationship. Like they perform so poorly, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. And then they go on this tear where they're just like, oh my God, they're winning everything, they're amazing. And they drag me back in to just go and fall down exactly the same hole again. It's kind of a bit the same with politics. Like what they're saying now, what they're promising 2 years out, you can do whatever you want. So you're going to suck me back in, and then what happens if you hurt me again? You know, it's like, well, then what? I'm not going to put up with this forever. I think that's what you're seeing in America as well, especially with the Democrats. Like the Democrats have continued to make promises and then not fulfilled them, and they're keeping on going. You have to vote for us, or else Donald Trump will get in. And people just now are kind of going, you hurt me. I'm not going to vote for anyone. You know what I mean? That's something that all politicians all over the world, I guess, have to have an answer for.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
And I think the core thing here around talking about the hospital, the one that they're going to get absolutely hammered by is National couldn't fund it. How are you funding it?
Yeah.
And I want to see some real adult discussions around that. And it's not going to be funded by one silver bullet solution. It's going to be done by a range of things. And one of those adult discussions that we have to have is the talk about borrowing for infrastructure is a smart move.
Yeah.
Not for sugar hits like tax cuts.
Yeah.
But we keep on hearing that, we just can't borrow all of this money. Our debt loading compared to other OECD countries is very, very low.
Yeah, very good.
All right. Yeah.
Let's find out what happened at this wonderful weekend away that we didn't go to.
These aren't cheap.
Is this Labor spending too much again?
This is Labor making sure that...
What a loaded question. Spending too much again. So National's right. So you're basically, that's a national talking point. Is this Labor spending too much again? So you're just taking your questions directly from the PR team of National? Like, are Labor spending too much? Fine. Is this Labor spending too much again? National talking point.
Promises that we made, many of which the current government endorsed before their last election, are actually delivered on.
It's a bit like the bad boyfriend who says they'll change, but then comes up with the same old stuff. More reckless spending, more taxes, more debt.
Labor's
She said more reckless spending, more debt is what she said.
No, I was more zeroing in on the fact of that. It's like the abusive partner coming back with the same old story and no new ideas from Nicola Willis of the National Party, who have built their entire platform of ideas from other national parties over the last 30 years.
And going backwards.
Forgot all of the lessons, bringing out the old same ideas from the ideas cupboard. I'm sorry, Nicola, that dog ain't going to hunt. We're on to you.
We are on to you.
announcements didn't end there.
Kieran McAnulty has been selected to chair our next general election campaign.
Cheer.
2 years out, was this a strategic move to silence rumours of a possible leadership threat?
I think it's just nonsense. It's true to say that I've been telling you all that I back Chippy 100%. Maybe you'll believe me now.
I think people trust and like him.
Chris Hipkins is a great leader.
For others, time will tell.
Will he be the leader in 2 years?
Look, he's doing a good job at the moment.
Labor's first year and opposition done and dusted as the party prepares to turn up the dial in 2025. Mikey Sherman, One News.
Yeah, so I mean, I probably what you expect from there is a bit of a rah-rah for the base, keep them engaged, not necessarily full-on policies or anything to come out, but a satisfactory result. You know, ginning up the base, getting them going on. I see Free Soul was there for it. Free Soul wore the BHN shirt, her BHN shirt. Got a few props for the boys. That's us, we're the boys. I wonder, Free Soul, I think you've got a Nicky No Boats. Did it get to you in time? Did you wear it or did you not wear it? Interesting. Yeah, I think it was an off-election year conference that probably did exactly what it needs to do. Fair?
Yeah, like I think that it's really important. I saw a lot of buzz on Blue Sky and other social media of people that had gone to the conference and had come out buzzing. And I think that's a really important step. You know, a year into this government, let's be honest, a lot of us on the left have taken a fucking beating and it's been exhausting. And I think for people to go to that conference and feel a bit of hope and a lot of energy is what I picked up on. And for Hipkins to really sort of set out a mission statement, I think it's mission accomplished there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything in the chat we want to get to? There's a few super chats and stuff, and then we can move into the next one. Stephen Leonard's got a always important message. Free Palestine. There you go. Easy. Kooky in it. Late fee. Hit the like, please, people. Kooky's told you to do it, so you should definitely do it. Hit that like. Mr. Alex says, something I'd like to see Labor is tackle the number of people leaving people, including builders and also health workers who moved to Australia. There is anger in the hut since the Cross Valley link could be told. Just first of all, well done on getting the Cross Valley link into the message about the people going overseas. It's good to see you're working well on that and getting it out there. I think anything that's sort of been paid for, or at least been allocated with people of Tararua are a perfect example. And now they say they might have to put tolls on them is ridiculous because they need to find other people. But yeah, I said this last time we talked about this, Chewy. I think it was John Key in like 2011 standing in the cake tin going, this many people, whatever it is, a month or a year or whatever, are leaving and it's bigger. So yeah, I think that's a massive thing. And Brian says simply, Labor will retain my vote on AUKUS. Sorry,
yeah, I think that's also a smart move. Look, as far as getting those tradies back and those people who've left for other countries for careers, unless you're going to outbid them, you know, you're going to offer them better paying conditions to come back. I don't think they're coming back, and I think that's the real danger. You know, if people go overseas and set up new lives, meet someone over there, start a family, whatever, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
It's not like the ones that go away on their OEs and that sort of thing. Australia's crying out for tradies and cops and nurses and teachers, and we're providing them. So National need to stop the rot. That's on them. When it comes to Labor, they need to keep the ones that we've got at that point.
All right, I wore my "When the Left Votes, the Left Wins" t-shirt, says Free Soul. Me and Emily have been talking today, Chewy, about some more t-shirt ideas. Well, we'll let you know more about that. I'll talk to you about after the show, Chewy. Seeing it was me turning up late today for a change, once in a blue moon. Okay, let's just do the second story super quick. It's not actually a huge amount to add to it because, you know, we don't really buy into this look at there's polls going on and where would they be if they had an election today? But there was a poll done and the polling... basically not, I've just said we don't do this, but to let you know, it had a hung parliament, which means literally nothing. But there are some more things that are more relevant that come out from some polling, like who is the preferred Prime Minister, who is a more popular leader, and it's not Christopher Luxon.
There's more bad news for Luxon. Chris Hipkins is slightly more popular as preferred Prime Minister.
The message...
I mean, that's devastating, actually. That's devastating in any poll. You know, we talked about this last time, True, before the election. I don't know if we've ever had an example where the preferred Prime Minister wasn't ending up being the Prime Minister. The losers don't typically end up winning that. I can't ever imagine there's been a government within a year where the Prime Minister has lost that preferred Prime Minister status. That's actually a really sort of devastating overall indictment of what's going on. Yeah, but there's more. Let's have a look.
Popular as preferred Prime Minister.
The message from Kiwis is that they want me to keep working hard to deliver outcomes for that from them. And
this is something I noticed in that interview. Yeah, this is something I noticed at the interview. And this is the look, so let's identify this, team. This is the CEO talk. To actually, because you think if you've got a product that you're selling and it's number 4 in the marketplace, you talk about it like it's number 1. You talk about it like it's the fear of all the others. And that's what this is. When we go to have a look at Q&A, how many times he said, and isn't it great? Like Jack Tame would say something to him that was really negative and he'd go, and isn't it great? This is what, and they talk about CEO talk, this is it. Him basically saying the opposite of the point he's just been asked, because that's what you do in sales, right? In sales is a theory called the what is it, the ABC? Oh, yeah, ABC. The ABC, right? The ABC theory in sales means always be closing. So if you're trying to sell something, you've got your pen on the docket and you try and close it. ABC, always be closing. Oh, so do you want to buy it now? Do you want to sign the contract now? Or how about now? Do you want to sign the contract? And that's what it is. It's like, isn't this awesome? If you say it enough to enough people, then they'll go, it's awesome. I'll buy it. And if you're not clear, that's what they mean when they talk about CEO talk. Anything, Chewy?
Yeah, I think this is a really key part of why that poll's turned on him, is because when people see the repetition and the emptiness of those words, look, what I'd say to you is, I think everybody's working just really hard, super hard on delivering outcomes for insert group here. It's empty. It's empty. People are questioning on him on this corpo nonsense talk.
Yeah.
And he's acknowledged it, but he can't change it.
Yeah.
And look, I've been I am a salesperson. I get how comforting the crutch of, this pitch has worked well for me in the past, I'll just recycle it. Customers can see through it. And as much as us taxpayers, us citizens hate being called customers, we are the customers of what he's selling.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If you see that repetition again and again and again, you can just call it what it is. It's a recycled pitch and it's not working.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the end of this one, because that actually kind of flows into the Q&A, and you'll hear the whole, I wrote it down, right? Isn't it great? Because he says it so many times. I know he said some other things so many times, which you're going to show us, Chewy, but he said, isn't it great several times, to try and point to the opposite of what Jack is saying. It's really weird.
From Kiwis is that they want me to keep working hard to deliver outcomes for that from them, and they can see us doing that.
Generally speaking, you'd expect to drop in popularity when you move from being Prime Minister to being Leader of the Opposition. It's kind of the nature of politics. But the fact that my favourable ratings are still very high, I take some encouragement from that.
But the surprise result is former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. She has the highest level of favourability among voters on 44%. Those are numbers David Seymour...
I'm like, what, is this from This is from March 2020? She's got the highest favourability. Everyone's finally going, like the sane people are finally going, oh, yeah. I see.
Right. We hounded her from office.
Yeah, maybe that was a bad move by us. Maybe we could have competent leadership if we hadn't chased her away.
We let some of the country's worst people say the most shocking things about her, to the point where she walked away.
Yep. All right.
Favourability among voters on 44%. Those are numbers David Seymour could only dream of. His favourables have taken a whopping 30-point hit since the same poll was taken last August.
Our party is about where it was at the election. As far as personal favourability, I found that's the most volatile thing there is.
Just 1 year on from the election, a poll that shows all sides have everything to play for in 2026.
Wow. I mean, you don't need a poll to tell us that, you know, respectfully, Andrea. We know that. Like, oh my gosh, Chewy, this poll's come out and now Labor realises it's all to play for. Before this poll, they had no idea. That's why these polls are stupid. But those are some really interesting little tidbits about the leadership, eh? Yeah, go, sir.
This is the part where we mock the poll, right? Because the poll is stupid. We're so far out. Like the only thing that is good about polls this far out is to try and see a trend.
Yeah.
Like the difference that they're talking about between Hipkins and Luxon it is well within the margin of error. And so far out that it doesn't matter. Like it is gaming. It is just wanting your team to score points. And we're going to revel in it a little bit. I'm going to take the most out. Seymour taking a 30-point hit, which I guess puts him on negative 27 now, I assume, is the most delicious part of that. But yeah, there was a comment, I didn't see who made it. I'm not going to go looking for it. That said the fact that Jacinda's on it, it makes the whole poll irrelevant.
Yeah,
that's dumb also, because the poll is, who's your preferred prime minister?
Yeah.
Like that's the question. Like if people decided, Mahatma Gandhi, as deputy leader of thingy, if there were enough people that answered that, that would be in the poll. Yeah. Yes, it's dumb, but that's the question.
Yeah,
so,
and that's why we don't pay much attention, to be frank, about how many seats in Parliament. That's all bullshit. Don't worry about that stuff. But the trends it shows are interesting, and the trend is like from that a little dip from National, a little rise from Labor. That's really the trend. Everyone else, much of a muchness. But those prefer that. Basically, what that's saying is, if you could pick someone to run the country today, who would it be? And for Luxon to be, it sounds like at least third. Jacinda's number one, Chippy's number two. So think about it that way. Add both of those Labor leaders together, you're probably getting to 75%. Think about it that way. And then there's C-Lux.
I swear, if a polling company calls me and says, hey, look, if the election was tomorrow, who would be your preferred prime minister? I'm just going to say me.
Yep. And if enough of us do it,
that would be an amazing result to see that. Like, imagine if we all said, no, I'll do it. And then you get, preferred prime minister.
Yeah.
Me. Undefined who me is, but that's our poll result.
Wu Ming, thank you for the super chat. 1 year in, the government is normally riding high in the polls. It's exactly right. And I guess, Chewy, we've been talking about this more for a long time, but even recently when John Toogood was here, that this the speed at which this government is moving further to the right. So this is what I reckon happens in politics, yeah? I reckon what happens is, like, political parties have their natural position, yeah? And then they have the centre. Neither National or Labor's position is the centre. And what they do is when they're in opposition, they spend their time travelling back towards the centre. And then they get elected because as they're travelling back towards the centre, the other party is travelling to their normal place. So a left-wing party or a centre-left party will head more towards the left as the National Party is coming more towards the centre, and then National wins. And then what they do is they start slowly, normally, heading back towards their natural position. And as they're doing that, Labor is starting to head back towards the centre, and then they get elected. But that hasn't happened this time. What's happened this time is National was kind of still sort of centre-right, and that was this worldwide trend against incumbency. And then they just, like in the space of a week, didn't slowly start working back. They just went shung. So if you think about it starting to go slowly back towards the right, like a normal trend would do, by the time they get out there after two election cycles, the preferred prime ministership is starting to go down of that leader. But because they've just gone whoosh, then the preferred prime minister status has started to go down, like it would have after two terms in a normal kind of cycle. You know what I mean?
I'm still concerned that I think the tactic here is to front load everything.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Like, there's a lot of people big mad. And there's a lot of people losing their jobs. And I think that's something that is remembered. Like last time we saw something like this was Ruth Richardson's government. And that put fucking psychic damage on this country that we're still trying to get over.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. It was extreme austerity. It's that this government does not learn lessons. And I think there's a lot of people that are going, I'm not getting what National promised me. And it's like, yes, we told you.
Yeah, we told you. All right, let's get through these super chats and then move on to Q&A. Citizen Gold, thank you for your super chat. A 30-point hit. Seymour really is the worst example of a human being. And now we have numbers to verify that.
It's science.
Wooming says, love Chippy's dig at Luxon. I reckon Kiwis deserve a straight-up answer from their political leaders. What I would say to you isn't an answer. Well, more on that shortly, I think. Mr. Arvis, to be honest, I'd say Chewy 2 for preferred Prime Minister. Greases. Let's not grease. Chewy doesn't need any more of a big head. He already knows he's the favourite.
They know when I come to power. These comments will be remembered.
Brian says Labour's internals are also good. I always find that interesting, that word. It makes me think of a surgical procedure. Internals are always a bit uncomfortable. All right, team, let's get into this, shall we? Big story from the weekend was Christopher Luxon on Q&A. It was an abysmal conversation, meaning his performance was abysmal. I've got, like I said, I've got up to 8 clips. I'm only planning on talking about 3 of them, but if we get close to the time, we can do another one. I've actually got them ordered. This is the next best one, and we'll go from there. But yeah, the CEO speak when Jack Tame says things that aren't very good, and he goes, "Isn't it great?" It's the salesman. It's the salesman who is trying to sell the third most favourite bottle of drink. Everyone likes Coke first and Pepsi second, and he's got brand Baldy Locks as third. That's the third most popular sports drink, and he's trying to go, it's so much better. And that's what the sales pitch is. That's what the CEO talk is. So this first conversation is the surplus, right? And grateful to Jack to follow our lead and holding him accountable to the standard he set for the opposition. Remember, what we do here at the very least is we hold this government to the standard they set for the last lot and for the standard they set for themselves. So set for themselves are things like what they promised in Dunedin Hospital. Expected of the other guys, surplus is a good example. Let's get to Jack.
Surplus. So you absolutely hammered the previous government for pushing back the surplus track. I dug out a press release from when you were in opposition. Quote, Grant Robertson's credibility problem. New Zealand will experience another year of deficits because Labor is failing to deliver the economic growth New Zealand needs.
There's also quite a lot of him trying to interrupt Jack and not allow Jack to ask a question. It's interesting.
Now, you've already pushed back your surplus track by 1 year from your pre-election promise. Are you still committed to returning the books to surplus in 2027, 2028?
Well, we have to fix the books. There's no doubt about that. That's what we're doing. We're doing that.
And if you haven't seen this, don't expect a single answer out of his mouth in the full half hour, as you just saw. Are you going to do it? Well, I'll tell you a story.
Like for those of you at home, get a piece of pen and paper out and you can track questions not answered, corporate speak, weird shit with his tongue.
And
like all of those are trackable.
And he uses the word tamariki, and it felt so strongly weird. It was like, that's the first time in the history of the word he's ever used that. Why the hell did he pull it out now when he never uses Māori word by choice? Happened to be talking about the poor, so I don't know. It was really weird coming out of his mouth. Really weird.
I see what that is.
Yeah. Yes. We'll keep going.
Way, we're making sure that we get reprioritised savings deployed to the front line. We give people tax relief. Working New Zealanders have benefited from that, which is fantastic. And we've obviously got to create the conditions for investment and for future growth.
That's nice. That's not my question.
Yeah,
but my question was, are you still committed to returning the books to surplus in 2027, 2028?
We are committed to getting to surplus, but we're going to get a revised forecast very shortly, as you know.
That sounds like a no.
Well, no, we're going to get a revised forecast. And in fairness, I can't comment on what that forecast will be, given Haifu happens just before Christmas.
If it was a credibility problem for Grant Robertson, why is it not a credibility problem?
Well, I'd just say it was a credibility problem because for 6 years in a row, he overspent his operating allowance by 600.
It's funny how they're not talking about borrowing, how for 6 years in a row, other than COVID, Nicola Willis has borrowed more this time around than those guys who were terrible at it did. It's funny, they don't bring that one up quite. You might have missed a bit there, Jack, but, So basically Jack gets him and says, if you call that incompetence, why isn't this incompetence? And of course, CEO speak, no, because our product's different. We have different reasons for why we've done it versus why they did it.
$1 million on average. And why is it not a credibility problem for you? If you promised originally that you were going to get us back to surplus next year, 2025, 2026, then you pushed it back a year, and it sounds like you might be pushing it back one more year. So if it's a credibility problem for him, why is it not a credibility problem for the economic manager?
We are working our way through and doing the right things. We are making sure we've got good, disciplined government spending.
But just putting it out, you're realising this is not an answer. Why is it not a credibility problem for you? Not the answer he's giving. You'll get sick of me after the 15th time I say it and on the second question, but, just making it clear.
We're making sure that we've got inflation now within the band, first time in 3.5 years. You've had 3 interest rate cuts in 12 months. That's fantastic. You've got rising confidence at annual highs, right? In the last 3 years, consumer
question of credibility.
Now we see growth. That's what we've got to do.
We're not seeing growth. We're actually, again, you can't point to any growth forecast
Jack, it's
that's improved.
somewhat naive, to be honest with you, to say, look, we had 6 years of economic mismanagement, and in 12 months we're supposed to fix that all.
Well, it's somewhat naive to say that the previous government had a credibility problem because they pushed the surplus track back.
6 years in government.
When you're doing exactly the same thing.
We've had 12 months.
So,
but also remember what Jack is doing. Don't let Luxon get away with this, whānau. What Jack is doing is saying, no, this is what you said, right? It's like I'm not putting these targets on you. These are the targets you put on yourself that would be back in surplus by next year. So actually, you're now saying, well, who would expect that to happen? It's like, well, you did. You put those numbers out there. No one else did.
They're just that good. National is innately so good at numbers that was just assumed that they would be able to turn this around. They're going to give it to us with absolutely no context. Like, yeah, cool. Mention how long Labor's in. Fantastic. What happened while Labor was in? Yeah, we're not talking about COVID anymore, are we?
No. What's COVID?
We can't mention COVID because then that leads to shit. Labor did a pretty bang up job there. Kept everybody in work, kept everybody's mortgage paid and the rent paid, food on the table. Everything a government should do. We cannot mention that. We cannot mention it. We're just going to say that Grant Robertson's shit at what he does, which is objectively not true, and then draw focus away the fact that they are tanking every metric in this country at a rate not seen since Ruth Richardson went, hold my beer, let's see what I can do with the economy.
I haven't heard hold my beer for a very long time. Chris says that we'll just cut this in. T-shirt idea, Jack Tame's face with, that's nice, but that wasn't my question. Actually, a really good idea, Chris. It's a really good idea for a T-shirt. We'll talk. Emily, you watching? No, we'll talk about that. All right, let's go to the next clip. In fact, I've already decided we're going to do 4 clips because one that we left out, Jack was talking, referencing something he had said, and I just realised when I heard him reference what he had just said, I'm like, yeah, we should play that. So let's keep moving, shall we? This one is talking about the poor. Are the poor better off now than they were? And he's talking relatively. Are they relatively better off now? So in other words, have you made life better for the poor relative to what the non-poor, the affluent, have had their lives made better under you guys?
So relative to the rest of the population, are the poorest people in New Zealand better or worse off today than when you took power?
They are getting better off under a national
better off
under our government.
No, are they better off relative to the rest of the population?
They are better off than they were 12 months ago because
relative to the rest of the population.
Food price inflation.
Sorry,
is down.
Prime Minister. The question is relative to the.
So there's the CEO speak. Rents are down. So he just powers on. This is the salesman coming out. This is the sales job. Well, he asks him to that. He always does.
Rest of the population. Are the poorest people in New Zealand better off than when you took power?
I'd say the poorest people, all New Zealanders, are doing better under this government than they were 12 months ago.
Of course, that's not the question I asked. The question is relative to the rest of the population.
Well, I think there's been, I think that we've got challenges about making sure we get people off welfare into work and into proper jobs and high-paying jobs.
Still not an answer, though, is it? Sorry, that's still not an answer. The question is relative to the rest of the population, are they better or worse off?
I don't know, but I presume it's no change. I would say to you that
there has been a change. So the very latest data we have is from the 2023-24 New Zealand Health Survey, published this week. It shows that in the months leading up to the end of July, compared to last year, the number of kids who live in households where food runs out has increased from about 1 in 5 to more than 1 in 5.
The thing as well is even though Jack just stop punching him, he's already dead. He gives him the opportunity to answer. Can you show us how you've done this? Can you tell me policies where you have done this? This is not an unfair interview. This is an interview from someone looking for answers and a person doing everything they can not to answer them. So I don't know how this has been received in the social media world, but if anyone's having a crack at Jack, it's like he says to him, what metrics are you using? He says to him, tell us the policies that help. And he doesn't answer any of them at any stage. We'll keep going, eh?
4. So the poorest have got poorer by that measure.
Well, I'll just say to you, we've seen a situation where we passed a budget that actually the Treasury assessed will lift 17,000 more kids out of child poverty in the last year of Labor because of high inflation.
But that just sounds a little bit like that $42 million for doctors, doesn't it? 70,000 kids out of poverty. Yeah, but of what? Because the 42 million for doctors was solving 3% of the issue. So obviously one doctor is better than no doctors, but we want the issue solved properly. I want to know now, 17,000 kids out of poverty, amazing, great. We want them to be out of poverty. What's the overall issue? How much of that is actually addressing? Is there still 99% of others to go? Where do we go from there? Sorry, Chippy?
Roll it back a little bit.
Yep.
And he says, I believe, that they're out of poverty because of the things that they've done with inflation. Can I just see if I'm correct on that?
That's 15 seconds back.
To more than 1 in 4. So the poorest have got poorer by that measure.
Well, I'll just say to you, we've seen a situation where we passed a budget that actually the Treasury assessed will lift 17,000 more kids out of child poverty in the last year of Labor because of high inflation and high interest rates and a recession. 23,000 more kids were put into poverty.
So it's not through any action this government has done. We've discussed this. A government has relatively little effect on inflation in this country because we're an exporter and an importer. We're beholden to international inflation and those sort of factors. So if he's saying that there's more kids that have been pulled out of poverty because of inflation, it's not through direct actions of this government to lessen the effects of poverty. It's nothing that they've done to physically lift these kids up. They're just saying, oh, we're going to take credit for this thing that's happened when we were at the wheel. Aren't we good for kids? It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons we're going to go back to the first question, because the first question, which I wasn't going to play, but we will play now, is about the International Monetary Fund. And Jack talks to him very clearly about lower inflation is great. Every country in the world's got lower inflation today than they had. Why are you guys taking credit for it? So we will definitely go back and do that. This one's got about 90 seconds to go. We'll keep going.
They analysed that budget and they analysed your tax cuts and tax credit initiatives. They found that the 20% of households with the lowest incomes saw their incomes increase by $13 a week. For the richest 20%, it was 3 times that.
Well, I'll just say to you, our tax relief package has been actually really successful. We've been able to deliver tax relief.
Do you see what I'm saying? Said like it's factual. This is the salesman. This is the best deodorant you'll ever wear. This is going to do a better job. This is a better tasting drink than any other. It's the sales pitch. He's telling us constantly over and over again that, and someone said earlier, the emperor's got no clothes. These are the finest threads. If you can't see these threads, then you're a moron. And everyone goes, well, I can see them. Emperor's got no clothes. It's exactly what he's doing.
Our tax relief package has been actually really successful. We've been able to deliver tax relief to 94% of Kiwis, 3.5 million Kiwis.
The point is, though,
that is a good thing.
Alongside the poor have got poorer under your tax package.
Well, just say to you,
relative to the rest of the population.
But what I'd say to you, Jack,
you're saying a lot of things to me, but you're not answering.
Well, you're not letting me actually answer, to be honest. And this is actually kind of important to actually, if you want to have a conversation about economics and the plan and what we're trying to do.
I just want to understand why the poor people in New Zealand. You can explain to us, why are the poor, under your leadership, why are the poorest people in New Zealand poorer relative to the rest of New Zealanders than they were when you took over?
I disagree. I think New Zealanders are better off than they were 12 months ago under our government. Secondly, I'd say...
Can you give me any evidence?
Yeah, this is what he says now. And this is Jack's very good. Okay, so what Jack's done is he's being fair. He's going, I've made a supposition based on the research I've got that says the poor are worse off as compared to the rest of the country. And he's about to say, okay, fine, show me that. And of course, Lux can't.
Zealanders are better off than they were 12 months ago under our government. Secondly, I'd say
Can you give me any evidence?
We are lifting 17.
Sorry, I keep on asking relative to the rest of the population. Can you give me any evidence, since you disagree, that the poorest New Zealanders are better off relative to where they were 12 months ago?
So completely fair. Show me. Okay, if I'm wrong, show me. Completely fair question.
We have a budget in 2024 where 17,000 more children are going to get lifted out of poverty.
Going to get.
As a function.
Going to get. Going to get.
Yet.
Going to get.
We put a lot of parents out of work, but sure, that's going to lift some kids out of poverty, I'm sure.
But going to get. So that doesn't mean yet. That doesn't mean it's happened. So it doesn't mean you can use that to say the poor are better off. Because going to get lifted out of poverty. I'll play it again.
In 2024, where 17,000 more children are going to get lifted out of poverty as a function of the decisions that our government has taken to lower the cost of living. Here's an example for you, right? We've taken costs out of businesses, farmers, landlords. You would give me a lot of grief about a landlord tax, as you would call it, in previous interviews.
I've never called it a landlord tax.
But the reality is...
Please, tell me where have I called it a landlord tax?
With unwide interest deductibility.
Where have I called it a landlord tax?
You've talked a lot to me about landlord interest deductibility in the past, right? And that's fair enough. But what I'm just saying to you, restoring interest deductibility, dealing with the bright line, getting the tenancy laws right, we haven't had a single rent increase. It's been stable rents over the last 12 months versus $180 per week under the previous.
People that disagree with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know how you could make that claim that there hasn't been a single rent increase. I guess, does that mean statistically? So like other people have got a 10% decrease and you've got a 10% increase and that makes it even? Because people in the chat right now are saying, rent's gone up for me.
Where is he getting that? Where is he getting that stat from? That must be, it must be something. We know he's not across this. We know he doesn't relate to renters or anything like that. It's not a man on the street that he's talked to. Somebody's given him a stat that says that rents haven't gone up, which is a laughable thing because that's destroyed as soon as you go out and you find someone whose rent went up.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, let's do those super chats. Do you want to get to them while I'm sort out the next clip?
Yeah,
because we don't want to leave them all to the very end because then it'll be like a 20-pack.
So Kiwi Bird says people are sick of Luxon CEO establishment talk. 100%. It's so hollow. Jack was definitely not tame in this interview. Destroyed.
Hey, not tame.
Carl says, anytime any politician doesn't answer the question that all journalists should say is that the answer is no and keep repeating that answer every time they don't want to answer the question asked. I would live for that. Can we get Kieran back on as BHN MVP? I want his thoughts on being named campaign chair. I think he's a great messenger and he can bring on you lads as well. That did spring to mind. Jack Tamer's forgetting about Labour bad though.
Oh, yeah. See, that would have been every answer. You could have just done that, Mr. Luxon.
Because why is this? Labour bad. Yeah. When Chris Luxon says New Zealanders are better off, a lot of people with conditions such as autism are having a hard time finding part-time or full-time work. Absolutely. Yeah. This is absolutely what happens when austerity kicks in as people get cut adrift. Like the businesses just want their bottom lines to they start trimming fat. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
This government does not care about people. And as I've said many times, as far as I'm concerned, that is the only concern that governments should have, is looking after their people. Howie V. I just see EV. He's an electric car. I am off beam with a deep gut feeling that the NACT Gov are emboldened to shock and awe because of the USA. They'll push further than ever. The greedy gloves are off and they're grabbing up hard and fast. Yep, that is something that I am concerned about as well. We have not seen this level of speed and recklessness out of any government in my memory.
Yeah.
Carl here says, Luxon, I disagree. I have alternative facts.
Yeah. Kellyanne.
And Luxon has concepts of a plan.
All right, we're going to keep going because this part of the conversation I think is one of the most important, if not the most important, because we're talking about the Treaty Principles Bill. And we here have been saying for a very long time that Christopher Luxon has to own the Treaties Principle Bill, even if it was penned by Mr. Seymour. Christopher Luxon opened the door for it to go through. And, you know, most of us would have thought, oh, well, he's basically any means to an end. I'm going to have to agree with this terrible policy that I really hate. It's a bottom line for ACT, and it's we just have to do it, and we're going to push it aside and get through. Turns out not the case. If you haven't seen this yet, people may have a slightly 5% different opinion on who is ultimately responsible for this bill once you get through this part of the conversation. It's longish. It's about 6 minutes total, but we'll go through it.
Māori relations. So you said you wouldn't support the bill at the second reading. You've been really clear about that. You've described it as divisive.
Yep.
Did you anticipate this level of response to the bill?
Yes, because frustration.
I call bullshit. Sorry, I call bullshit. Because if you knew this was going to happen, you never would have done it. I call bullshit.
It is divisive.
Yep.
Did you anticipate this level of response to the bill?
Yes, because frustration has been building for a number of years around this issue.
You
on all
knew
sides
that
of the
we
debate.
were going to get this level of response.
There is a massive frustration in the country around this issue.
Caused by you and David Seymour.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of that?
To the table.
Are you aware where the frustrations come from? Are you aware?
On all sides of that debate, and a legitimate frustration.
I just want to say it again. There's not all sides. You and Seymour say this. There's not 14 different professional opinions based around this treaty principles bill. There's two, both sides. Don't try and make it sound like, oh, we all got our various opinions. No, there's two. There's two sides to this debate.
So you consciously made a decision to support a bill through the first reading that has contributed.
If you haven't seen this, I'm just thinking what Jack's thinking right now. Jack's going to drop the elbow off the top rope, and he knows he's going to. And I would just love to think what is going through his head right now. Is it like, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? Is it going to come naturally? Because when it comes, honestly, that's the moment where I went, what the, out loud when I heard Luxon say what he's going to say in part of these 6 minutes.
Contributed to worsening Crown Māori relations in New Zealand.
No, let's that's an important topic. So let's back up.
Can you just answer that question and then you can give us some context?
Well, what I'd say to you is that I know that this is a very divisive issue. I know that there's strong feeling and frustration on all sides of that debate.
Both
no
sides.
doubt about it.
Both sides.
That has been building for a number of years. What do you do with that frustration?
You haven't answered the question. The question is, what kind of leader makes a decision to support a bill knowing that it will contribute to worsening relations with New Zealand's Indigenous people?
What I'd say to you, Jack, is it's a leader who actually formed a government because the New Zealand people delivered an outcome through an MMP system, and we have to do compromise. And you may not like it, and I'm sure David Seymour doesn't like it because he wanted a full national referendum.
No, I'm not sure
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it because I don't like the bill at all. I don't think it's
Remember we've said this before. This is this great guru of business who is the only person I've ever heard broadcast a lose-lose compromise. Nobody likes this. They lose, they lose, they lose. I've never heard that in business before, that the result we're going to aim for is a lose-lose.
Right way to deal with race relations in this country. We came to a compromise. That is quite normal in coalition governments and MMP environments, and that will continue to be normal going forward.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. I didn't get what I wanted. David Seymour didn't get what he wanted. We came to a compromise. That's the reality of it, and I've been very straight up about that. But we're not supporting it at second reading.
No, we understand you're not supporting it.
Right?
You made that really clear. So, I mean, first of all, I'm not sure that David Seymour didn't get what he wanted out of all of this.
People.
He wanted a full national referendum.
Well, that's what he says. And this is the thing, right? This is what he says. But this is welcome to politics, Prime Minister. And the reason this is important is because it says so much about your negotiation skills, but also your character as a leader. You consciously agreed to a policy which you knew would worsen relations with Crown and iwi in New Zealand. So my question is this. As part of the coalition negotiations, did ACT make the treaty principles an absolute explicit bottom line?
It was a very difficult negotiation. It was the thing that took the longest.
That's the question. That's the question.
So I'm saying this for the 1% of people watching who don't know. A bottom line means that Seymour would say, if you don't do this, we are not going to go into coalition. So was it that, Mr. Luxon?
Resolve. There are strong feelings on all sides of that debate.
I understand. So
that's built up.
They haven't
on both
answered the
sides.
question there. Can you answer that question?
Well, I just said to you, we came to a compromise. We found a way through.
So my question was, did ACT make it an absolute explicit bottom line for forming a government?
Well, I'm not talking about our negotiations that happened between two parties.
ACT has. I called David Seymour this week.
That's fine. But the point.
Have you seen this, Joey?
Jack Tame off the top rope with a steel fucking chair.
Do you know what he's going to say?
No.
Have you seen this?
I went
Okay.
into this blind because I knew we were going to do it.
This is my
Oh
what
my
the.
God.
So Jack Tame knows the answer to that question. He's asking the Prime Minister, was it a bottom line? Were you in a situation where Seymour said, if you don't do this, we are not forming a government with you? All right. I didn't realise you hadn't seen it, Joey. I'll sit back. You listen to what he says.
What do you think he said? I'm not. The point for me is that we actually came to a compromise, and that's what you expect in an MMP government and a coalition government.
So I called David Seymour. Do you want to know what he said?
Well, I've been in negotiations with David about that issue. We disagree strongly on it.
Okay, no, I know you disagree.
Yeah.
But it's the deal that you, as a seasoned negotiator, reached. So I asked David Seymour. He confirmed that ACT didn't explicitly play the bottom line card. He said that as part of the negotiations over the Treaty Principles Bill, ACT never threatened to blow things up and go back to the polls.
Look.
What the fuck?
You wet ham sandwich.
Like, so you either got played, Seymour, to take on something that was never threatened to blow up the negotiations, or, I was saying this on Twitter and someone said it back to me, of course what I thought, or, this is the thing, or Luxon wants it. They're your only two possibilities. They're your only two possibilities. Luxon got played and dog walked, as Chewy keeps saying, by someone who sounds like they were going, well, we never made it a bottom line, but we wanted it. Or Luxon wanted it. Only two possibilities.
Like, let's game this out, right? So let's say they did put it on the table. This is an absolute red line. If we don't do this, we're going to sit on the crossbenches. Where are ACT going to go?
Yeah.
Are they going to go and talk to Labor and form a government? Are they going to make it hard? They have nowhere to go. This is the whole thing with this negotiating thing. When you're that far to the right of the major party, do you want to be part of the government and get something done, or fucking not? Because those are the choices. Like, we can dicker about this, but Luxon was concerned about how long it was taking. He wanted to see that he could form a government quickly because he's a good deal maker. He didn't consider any of this. That wasn't his focus. He wanted to be Prime Minister. He wanted to make sure that he wasn't seen as letting Winston drag it out like Winston always does. So he didn't consider all of this. And then now you've got your coalition partner picking up the phone to Jack Tame and going, oh, yeah, no, it wasn't a big deal, but we got it anyway.
That's the next question,
Holy
though, Chewy.
shit.
But that's the next question. Why on earth would David Seymour tell Jack Tame that? Think about this. Last week,
Because he's a
Seymour,
slimy little rat man.
but why? Well, Seymour last week was making sure everyone knew that there was more ACT policies going through than not. Winston last week was saying that Luxon is struggling, quote unquote struggling, which means is not qualified to do the job. This week, Seymour is telling a journalist, no, wasn't a bottom line for that. He must know that when Jack Tame was going to use it in this interview, it would not be good for Luxon. So why did he do it? What game is he playing? And just imagine, because this is getting towards the end of the interview, Luxon coming off the set, walking into the green room with his advisors. Honestly, that
seemed drywall.
Yeah. Let's listen to it again because it's kind of beautiful, and then we'll get to the end of this clip.
Explicitly play the bottom line card. He said that as part of the negotiations over the Treaty Principles Bill, ACT never threatened to blow things up and go back to the polls.
Look, it was a major issue for ACT and for the National Party.
Is he being honest there?
Well, Dave, I'm just not getting into it with you, Jack. I'm not discussing conversations I have with other party leaders in a negotiation.
Even though the other party leaders are discussing those conversations with Jack Tame.
We got to a position, as I've been very upfront about, with a compromise. No one's happy about it. But got it. The question is, what do you want to do about it?
If ACT wasn't playing the bottom line card, if they weren't threatening to blow it all up and go back to the polls, You didn't have to agree to this.
I disagree. This is a strong position from the ACT Party.
But it wasn't a bottom line. It wasn't a bottom line.
It was part of our compromise that we came to. So that's where we got to.
I understand it was
now
a
the question
compromise.
is, what do you want to do about it? And the reality is it has caused frustration, right? And I don't think a simplistic treaty principles bill that rewrites 184 years worth of history is the way you solve that. I do believe that you take it issue by issue. There are legitimate frustrations. Look at what we've done. We disagree with the Māori Health Authority.
Yeah, look at what you've done.
Wow.
Look at what you've done.
Awesome. It wasn't working. It didn't deliver outcomes. There was massive bureaucracy. We didn't agree with co-governance of Three Waters. We've disbanded that. We didn't agree with actually Wellington mandated local Māori awards. We opposed it in opposition, and we've actually pushed that back to local communities. That's how you deal with the issues by issue, case by case.
Yeah, so I'm interested in why you made the deal, right? So you, as an apparently skilled and experienced negotiator, you were prepared to support maybe the most contentious policy in recent New Zealand history, although it wasn't an explicit bottom line. And you yourself say it's divisive.
It wasn't. I didn't support the proposal,
The question is, Prime Minister, why you folded on something so contentious when you didn't have to?
We didn't fold. We compromised, and we found a way through for both parties.
If you didn't push him to an absolute bottom line, that means you folded.
Yeah, I would just say to you, Jack, you weren't there. I understand what we did in the negotiations. I'm proud of the negotiations and the way we went about it.
CEO talk. I'm proud. Everything was perfect. It was a perfect phone call, but that's the CEO talk. No, we did well. Everybody won. Yes, that little company's just taken over our big company, but everyone won in the end when you actually got your nose firmly stuck up the arsehole of the other CEO of the smaller company. CEO talk. Chewy, sorry, you're going to say something?
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that you're proud of the negotiations and you did a good job, and then you're not proud of the fucking outcome.
Yep.
And the outcome is something you have acknowledged as being divisive and harmful for New Zealand society in a way we haven't seen for decades.
Yep.
You can't say that you did a good job and that's the result that you got.
Yep. All right.
You own this.
Yep.
You own what you've done. You should be crucified for this.
60 seconds.
I understand what we did in the negotiations. I'm proud of the negotiations and the way we went about it. If you think about it, a lot of sceptics and a lot of media commentators and pundits would be saying this doesn't look very stable with three leaders coming together a year.
And they were proven correct.
Ago, it's proved to be a very coherent and stable government.
Yeah, except that you've just said that Crown-Iwi relations are worse than when you took over.
Sure.
We've had the largest protest in New Zealand history.
Well, I just also say to you, though, but that they built on both sides of that debate in the under previous Labor administration. We now have...
Well,
Blame Labor. Got it out there. You got it out there, team. Woohoo! We should have like a little buzzer when he says blame Labor.
Have you an opportunity to tell us what you've done to improve things?
I just want to make sure you understand our position.
I understand. I think everyone understands your position.
No, you don't, because I think the outcomes...
Do you regret agreeing to it?
No, it's the reality of MMP environment, and you have to be pragmatic and you have to have compromises. Otherwise, governments don't get formed. And that is the same if you think about a Labour, Te Pāti Māori, Greens coalition. Are you seriously going to have a separate parliament, a separate education system, separate justice system?
Boogeyman, blame the left for everything now. Be scared of the left.
Well, one might expect that if the largest party was to find itself in those negotiations, that at the very least they would push their coalition partners right to a bottom line.
And what was great is that we in those coalition...
What was great? This is great.
Agreements. Didn't push them to a bottom line?
No, but we got massive alignment on the things that all three parties were aligned around. The economy, law and order, public services.
Chewy, I deliver you a gift. We've got one more clip we're going to watch, but you can have a go.
This man got absolutely fucking bodied. Like, I mean, a little bit of hyperbole of Jack Tame off the top rope with the steel chair, but he just kept on hitting him with the steel chair. I am so glad to see him pinned to the wall on you cannot say that this was a good negotiation when I have talked to the other party and they said it wasn't a big deal. And you're sitting there going, oh, it was such a tough negotiation, but we got there in the end. And then you want to say it was such a good negotiation, but it's somehow MMP and Labour's fault that Māori are unhappy. And then, as you said, having to drag out the boogeyman that somehow Labour is going to have to agree to Te Pāti Māori setting up a separate parliament, which is just pie in the sky stuff.
Yeah.
It's It's crazy. Like, if you have, like, where was ACT going to go? Hey, Luxon, we want a full referendum. No, you can't have a full referendum. That's crazy. Okay, we want to do a bill. We want to do a bill, and you have to support it. Oh, I don't know about that. Oh, okay. Well, we're prepared for ice cream lunches on Thursdays. You know, you just say no. You just say no, or you go, David, that's fucking crazy. We'll have riots in the streets. Pick something sensible. I want the New Zealand flag changed to the same colour as my tie. Okay, that's something that we'll get more support for.
Like, get behind a pink one. Yep.
Get behind a pink New Zealand flag. That's fine. Like, you just say no, and then you move on to something else. There is something else that you want, David. I am not giving you that. Bottom line, we'll sit here for a week. I'm not budging, because this is going to ruin my legacy, and it's going to ruin my chance of getting a knighthood, which is the whole reason I'm here. Stop fucking me around, David.
Cougar Nick just says, shame, Game of Thrones, as he walks naked through the town. Oh, there's another T-shirt. Sorry. Peter Syme, hopefully you got your T-shirt today, Peter, by the way. Hopefully you got that delivered. I do believe that Luxon's remaining credibility, not that he had much the day before, collapsed entirely. Now, Chewy, I don't know about this, but you starring your own comment and then having it to put out there. I'm not sure if that's appropriate.
I just put it there to remind myself, because I saw different versions of this in the chat, and this is just so good. This is a hashtag. If it's not doing the rounds, we need to make it do the rounds.
All right. What I would say to you, what I would say to you is, Rando, show us, show us on the doll where Jack Tame hurt you, Chris. That's very, very funny.
In the head. And in the heart and the bottom.
And Mr. Arvids for the Foo Fund. All right, guys, we're going to do one more. And I said if we had time, we would. And I actually think this is really important, because this is talking to Christopher Luxon's credibility when it comes to his economic claims. International Monetary Fund is where they start. Where do they rate us in the world? And the thing that's great about this, and we've talked about this, is if businesses, business people, big business boys, were confident about the future under this government, they wouldn't be leaving our shores in record numbers. So that's nothing to do with the past. That's to do with the future. If tradies were confident that another boom was coming under this government, then they wouldn't be going to Australia. And Jack Tame picks up on that and talks a bit more about the International Monetary Fund and what they think of us at the moment under national.
And it's all about jobs. It's all about growth, and you've said that growth and productivity is the key to our economic prosperity. So the International Monetary Fund records GDP growth data for 190 countries. According to the latest figures, where just roughly would you expect New Zealand to sit?
Oh, I mean, we've been flat to negative, actually, for the last 3 years, essentially. And that is a function of high interest rates because of high inflation, because of poor financial management.
So where would you expect us to sit? 190 countries, just roughly?
I wouldn't know, but I would just say to you, I know where we are, which is that it's negative and flat.
So currently, according to the International Monetary Fund, out of 190 countries, New Zealand is 179th. Not just lower growth than Australia, Canada, France, Singapore, those countries we compare ourselves to, but lower growth.
Growth, right? Future, what we're doing now, growth. Not debt from the past or whatever other word, growth. Projections.
Then Guinea-Bissau, Suriname, Chad, lower growth than Iraq under Prime Minister Christopher Luxon.
Sheesh.
Why is that?
Well, look, again, what I'd just say to you is we've kind of forgotten the immutable laws of economics, I'd say, that we learned 35 years ago. And we've taken good...
We've forgotten them, or one could say some of you never learnt them, Mr. Luxon.
Economic management for granted. When you go spend 84% increase in spending, when you drive up inflation domestically, you have to then take interest rates up. When you take interest rates, you put the economy into recession, and when the economy is in recession, it leads to unemployment. And that's why we've always said if you actually care about working New Zealanders, you actually are fiscal conservatives. You actually run the economy well, because the pain is ultimate unemployment. And that's what we've actually been seeing, Jack, the last 3 to 6 months, is the lag effect of that. If you're a business that's hung in there with high inflation, high interest rates, it's a suppress demand, the last thing you're left with is actually laying workers off, and we've seen some of that this year. So that's why we've got to get, we're working our way through those 5 components, but you've got to work through them sequentially so that you get the show going.
So which countries didn't experience an inflation spike during COVID?
Well, yeah, this is also very good, and what we've been saying for 2 years. It's been a stick to beat Labor with about inflation and extra spending, like every country in the world. Yes, we did have a bit of a longer tail than some, but there's a couple of reasons for that. One is we don't have the economy that, say, USA does, right? And 2 is that we chose to take on a bit more debt to keep more New Zealanders alive. So I'm okay with that payoff. So what countries didn't? The answer is, well, none. And finally, we get someone like Jack Tame asking someone like Christopher Luxon about that.
So that you get the show going.
So which countries didn't experience an inflation spike during COVID?
Well, ours was longer because we kept printing
that wasn't
cash.
my question. My question was which countries didn't?
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, what I'm
I
focused on is
basically all countries on Earth.
Yeah,
right?
Hang on. How can you be the Prime Minister of a country, be in charge of an economy, be the party of business and economy, and not have a clue what's going on in the rest of the world economically? Like, how can you actually say which countries didn't have a spike? I don't know. Like how is that acceptable?
Which countries didn't?
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean,
I'm not sure. Like all of the Western countries did. I know that. I know that, Chewy. How can I know that? And the Prime Minister, who is the economic whiz kid and the dealer of deals, not know that?
Oh, what was that Baltic country that he wanted us to be like?
Was it Georgia? No.
It wasn't Georgia. There's awesome stuff happening in Georgia, but it's not that. Was it Lithuania?
Don't think so. Can't remember.
Something
Anyway.
Like but there would be the easy comparison. And I wish Jack would pull this out of his little bag of tricks.
Estonia.
Estonia. Yes. Yeah. Bring out that comparison. How did Estonia do during COVID? How's Estonia doing now? You wanted us to be like Estonia. Are we like Estonia? That would be a great question. I don't have the answer to that, but that would be one to talk about. But he's adrift here. This is the sign of a prime minister that is very surface level. He is not across his numbers. He is not ready to go into this interview. This is why they've kept him away from Jack all year. This is dreadful.
Yeah. And just so you know, we've done it a bit of the flipped around. This was the first series of questions. I know we've played it in a different order to you, but this was the start of the interview with him. Let's keep going.
Well, I think basically all countries on Earth.
Yeah,
right? All countries on Earth had inflation. All developed economies are bringing inflation down now, but for some reason New Zealand's 179th out of 190, worse than we were 12 months ago.
Yeah, and that's why we're working so hard, Jack, to make sure that we actually deal with the cost of living through getting inflation and interest rates right.
CEO talk. So now he's going to sell. Now he's selling the product. That's why this roll deodorant is better than the opposition. And once we get to Q3, you'll see the sales increase and everything will be fine. CEO speak.
That's why
everyone is working incredibly hard to deliver outcomes for everyday New Zealanders. That is a phrase that means fucking nothing and cannot be measured.
Yeah. All right.
So hard, Jack, to make sure that we actually deal with the cost of living through getting inflation and interest rates right. Now that means confidence is building. That confidence has to translate into economic growth. You've got forecasts, I think, from the RBNZ I saw this week suggesting that we might be growing 2 to 2.4% next year. That's good. It's a start. It's better than where we've been, which is flat to negative growth.
So you blame the previous government on the situation in New Zealand?
But now we own it, and now we're working hard in 12 months, and we've been working really hard to actually make sure we put discipline spending in place.
Yeah.
That has been a key partner to monetary policy to get inflation back down.
Sorry, just let me ask a question here. So I appreciate the political convenience of blaming the last government.
Well, it's not really. It's just the reality.
Well, we're in December 2024. Like I say, inflation's coming around in basically every comparable economy in the world. I think everyone would appreciate that a bit of an impact on growth at the start of your parliamentary term might be understandable. But the curious thing is that the forecasts around growth have continued to worsen. So take this week's monetary policy statement. The forecasts are for even slower economic growth than the monetary policy statement was forecasting in August, when you'd already been in the job for 9 months. So why do the forecasts keep getting worse under your government?
I would just say to you, Jack, I think all New Zealanders know it's been a pretty tough time. We've inherited a hell of a mess. And I think what you've seen in 12 months...
Including the economists, right? So the economists, the Reserve Bank, the Treasury, for example, all of your staff, they know exactly the kind of fiscal situation you inherited. And yet, while you've been in government, the forecasts have been worse. So look at that MPS in August. They gave us growth forecasts. And in the time since August, those forecasts have gotten worse under your leadership.
Yep.
And again, so why is that?
Well, again, what I'm saying is you have to take your...
Just remember, forecasts, what's to come. So your policies, Mr. Luxon, that you're putting in today, the things that you're shaping the future with, the experts are saying that what you're putting in place is not going to do that. The forecast, what's to come, is slower.
Forecasts have gotten worse under your leadership.
And
so
again,
why is that?
Well, again, what I'm saying is you have to take your medicine. You actually have to work through the economy, and that's what we're doing. You get spending under control, as we've been doing. We haven't thrown the economy into austerity. We've got a very balanced approach to that.
You're not answering my question. My question is why does it get worse under your government?
Because you actually have to work your way sequentially through spending, inflation, interest rates, growth.
But all of the economists appreciate that, and yet for some reason the forecasts keep getting worse.
Well, the forecasts are forecasts. The reality is we get to change those forecasts if we do the right things. That's what we want to do as a government. Right?
Forecasts are forecasts. You said, quote, our job is to make sure we do better than the forecast.
That's right.
What you said in the lead up to last year's election. So can you point to any medium-term GDP growth forecast that has improved during your time in charge?
No, what I'd say to you, we still acknowledge we've got tough times. The forecasts around economic growth will be a consequence of the decisions we make around spending, inflation and interest rates.
Just to get an answer on that question, though, can you point to any medium-term GDP growth forecast that has improved under your leadership?
Our forecasts are really challenged and they have deteriorated.
So just to be totally clear on that question, though, can you point to any medium-term GDP growth forecast that's improved under your leadership?
Not from memory that I can see, but what I can tell you, Jack, is...
You can't?
No, but what I want you to be really clear about is it's all very well, but you had 6 years of economic mismanagement.
You're the CEO. You're the guy with a 100-day plan. You're the guy who said we're going to turn the economy around. And the truth is,
and isn't it great?
That under your leadership, the forecasts have continued to deteriorate.
Isn't it great?
This is what I was talking about. We'll go back. Here's a really good example of the CEO talk. Listen to what Jack's saying. Jack's basically saying, you're the guys that are supposed to fix this. And he's going, isn't it great? But Jack's going, but it's not being fixed. And isn't it great? This is the perfect example of CEO talk.
I can tell you, Jack.
You can't.
No, but what I want you to be really clear about is it's all very well, but you had 6 years of economic mismanagement.
You're the CEO. You're the guy with a 100-day plan. You're the guy who said we're going to turn the economy around. And the truth is,
and isn't it great?
That under your leadership, the forecasts have continued to deteriorate.
But isn't it great that we've actually lowered inflation, food inflation?
Well, I mean, like I said, every comparable country in the world has lowered inflation.
Rates coming down in the way that we have after 12 rate rises. We've got 3 rate cuts.
Wasn't it great that the previous government was bringing down inflation as well? Wasn't it great that every single comparable economy around the world...
If you carried on spending as the previous government did, you wouldn't have seen inflation or interest rates come down this year.
Hey, Pat.
Yes.
Pat,
yes.
Guess what else has come down this year? Guess what else? This is new news.
Yeah.
This is new news. Our credit rating, our country's credit rating has come down as well. We're no longer AAA+.
So when we were under COVID and those reds under the bed that couldn't do anything, we had a better credit rating than when we were under the party of business who know how to fix things, who have got worse outcomes projecting forward, who have got worse forecasts projecting forward than the last lot of, quote unquote, from Mr. Luxon, economic vandals had. Yeah?
Yeah, that's great. But look, I have full confidence that our finance minister will get us back on track because she's got the qualifications to really get us there. Oh, hang on. Fuck, no, she doesn't. We're doomed. We're doomed. We're doomed. We don't need ferries. We need lifeboats because this government plans to sink us completely. We're led by a buffoon that is not across this stuff. He has nothing but buzzwords. Isn't that great?
Isn't it great?
I'm going to hold my tongue in a weird way while I try and think about something. I'm Christopher Luxon. Look at my tongue. Like, it's just weird. You go into probably the show that you know you're going to get a grilling, right? Luxon should have been in a boot camp surrounded by all of his media advisors, everyone with all the polling. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. He's definitely going to hit you with this. You've got to know the answer. It's like he just walked in off the street.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Unprovable statistic. Optimistic outcome. Buzzword. Patronizing comment to Jack. This guy is a disaster. Absolute disaster. And I think I hope, Centre New Zealand, this is what you voted for. Did you know him well enough? Did you think that this was going to happen? Or was it just because you were itchy? Your bed sheets were itchy and you wanted a change. This is what happens when you don't do the research. Okay, and I get it. Not everybody wants to be a political tragic like us. But we come back time and time again. Like even his comment of, I think we've forgotten some lessons from 35 years ago. I think that's really on the nose. 35 years ago was 1989. That was David Longie's Labour government. Obviously, they got voted out in a landslide because the whole country was on the ropes. And that's when we got Bulger's national government. That's where we got Ruth Richardson from. And that's when we got the wholesale selling off of assets. Thousands and thousands of people losing their jobs. The economy tanking. Hotlines set up to Dobbin beneficiaries. That's what these guys are trying to emulate. Yeah, 7 people are trying to make this guy fucking relatable.
That was 4 out of the 8 clips, so we could double up the time, but we're not gonna. Okay. Look, it wasn't. It's worth going and watching. Like some of the headings I've got that we aren't doing tonight: child poverty action and direction, tax incentives for landlords. Didn't cover off that. What about how long they've had their hands on the books for? We did. Well, there's other parts of Crown relationship with Māori which we didn't play this more, and there's also him talking about all sides of the debate and what we should be doing for tamariki in New Zealand. And he says tamariki in the most awkward. I've never said this word before in my life, but I'll pull it out now.
I'm going to preface this. Tamariki means Māori children. Not children in general, Māori children.
Interesting.
So there's a nice racist dog whistle for you as well. I don't know if he really means it in that way, but that's how it's going to land. Look, I reckon there's a few people that have just joined our chat tonight and probably don't have time to scrub back and see this. So I have a version of what we just watched, just a lot more concise. if you'll indulge me. If you'll indulge me. We will hit that play button.
I just say to you, what I'd just say to you is, what I'd say to you is, well, I just say, what I'm saying to you is, I would say to you, well, I'll just say to you, I'll just say to you, I'll just say to you, what I'd say to you, Jack, what I'm just saying to you, as I said to you, that I just say to you, and I just say to you, what I'd say is, what I'd say to you is that what I'd say to you, Jack, I would just say to you, Jack, but what I'd just say to you is that, Jack, I just say to you, I'm just not getting into it with you, Jack. What I'd say to you is that, I'm just not getting into it with you, Jack. What I'd say to you is that, Jack. What I say to you is, I'm just not getting into it with you, Jack. I just say to you, what I'd just say to you.
What was it, 27?
He said what I would say to you, 20.
Chewy's been taken out by the secret police whilst we wait for Chewy to come back. Thank you for the super chat, Wooming. Time to remember Luxon is the worst PM ever. You wouldn't, from Campbell, says you have to ask the question, why did Jack perform so well? It's because, unlike the government, he listens to expert advice. Sorry, Chewy, I've got more super chats, but 27, you were going to say... Chewy's not with us, I don't think. Mr. Arvids says, imagine having a year to prepare and still flopping this hard. It's probably fucking Flopsy Topsy Luxon, I'm guessing. Henry says, should try and get Bernard Hickey on. Yeah, that's a good idea. And Rajan, when Bordylocks blames Labor supposed mismanagement for his public service cuts, it reminds me of a domestic abuser saying, you made me hit you. Yes. Chewy, you going to come back or are you done for the night? Oh, I think that just came in, didn't it? Jack just showed how to boil an egg without water from Richard. Appreciate the super chat. See, I didn't just get rid of another super chat, did I? Oh, let me just check. Scrolling back. And this is this little hashtag. We should get this one going around. I see that on Twitter in particular, the hashtag Nicky No Boats has started going around. So maybe we can influence the whole of social media with what I would say to you is, I know, I think I got all the super chats. What's that one there? Yeah, Ryzen. All right. Just to check in, team. Thank you for being with us tonight. It was a gosh, what do you say? It wasn't a good look. It was a long show. It was I don't know. I'll tell you what though, it's well worth watching if you want to get back and if you want to check it out. There are many parts that we haven't actually got to tonight, which is still worth having a look at. And other than that, are you still with us, Chewy, or are you sorted off for the night? Hello, Chewy. I'm talking to Chewy. That little grimace on the face, I think that means he can't hear us. So what we'll do, what I'm going to say to you is, it's perhaps time for a big old goodbye for the night.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what Chewy and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
All right, that's it for me. Did we get you back, Chewy, to wrap up? Can't hear you, Chewy. Don't know what you're saying. Can't hear you. This is why the mainstream media won't take us seriously. And we can never beat them in the... Oh, hang on, we did. Huh. Must be because we kind of... This is sort of part of our niche. Like, this is part of the cuteness about the show. You going to try one more time? You going to say hello to us or not? You're not going to say anything? No, you're not going to say anything. Chewy's lost his voice. I've lost my patience. So we'll see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo team!